Welcome into No Pun Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. It is episode 3 of our 2025 A Look Inside series. And once again, back with the greatest the NFC East has to offer, the New York Giants. Now, one could argue the best the city of New York has to offer. It's a tall task asking that between the two professional football teams. But the New York Giants, you guessed it, same bad coach, same bad offensive scheme. Seems to be a common theme with these top 3 horrible teams in the NFL. We are breaking down this dog shit offense, this maybe good front seven. We're going to find that out. I got Josh and Ryan to break all of it down. Let's get into it. We all have that one coworker, right? That you sit there, you watch them fail over and over and over again. Ryan, you're a trophy husband. I know you don't know that life.
I was going to say, my only coworker are like my cat and dog. And so,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
my
like-
cat's pretty fucking shitty. So
like imagine your cat just shits on the floor. And like that is the equivalent to what Brian Dable has done for the last 3 seasons in New York. But what does he have? A job.
yeah, and Malik
And
Neighbors.
if I'm not mistaken,
Exactly.
if I'm not mistaken, didn't he also win Coach of the Year? Or at least
Yeah,
was
his
it
first year, I
contend-
believe. Yeah,
Good Lord.
surprisingly led that team to the playoffs.
Kevin Stefanski and Brian Dable, both Coach of the Year winners, Kevin Stefanski twice, have losing records with their respective teams.
Wow.
Can we just give Coach of the Year to the team that has the best record? Can we do that? Is
Yeah,
that hard to
Actually,
do?
looking at the Coach of the Year odds, you know the 2 head coaches that have the absolute worst odds to win Coach of the Year?
The worst odds to win.
Andy
like the
Reid and
lowest.
Nick Sirianni.
Lowest.
Yep.
How? That doesn't make any
Exactly.
sense.
They're the 2. They're coaching the 2 best teams in their respective divisions, and they have the worst odds to win Coach of the Year.
Like this, it's not going to happen. But let's just say hypothetically, the Chiefs of the Eagles are a 2-loss team.
How are those not the coaches?
How are
of the
they
year?
not?
Exactly.
How's it not the
Nick
coach of the year?
Sirianni, among all active head coaches, has the highest career winning percentage.
That's a horrible statistic. I'm not gonna. I saw a tweet. They extended Nick Sirianni right a few weeks ago. I
But he
saw a
just won
tweet.
Super Bowl. Of course they're
Oh
extended.
no, of course. I just forgot it to happen. I saw a tweet. It's like I've seen 3 seasons of Nick Sirianni, 2 where he's been in the Super Bowl, and I still can't tell if he's a good head coach. And I was like, okay, glad it's not just me seeing. It's like the world is like,
Yeah.
is he good? Are we sure? So there's that. It's very, very interesting. So we'll see. He did lose his offensive coordinator. So we'll see if the offense takes a step back like it did when he lost Shane Steichen. But neither here nor there. We're here to talk about a different NFC East team, one that's better, one that's going to win the division. I smell weed coming through my window right now. I'm high. I'm just letting you know. I'm
Obviously.
high because I smell weed coming through my window. Now, if you want to gamble, and don't gamble on this team, but if you do, Underdog, promo code WOFF, claim your free pick first time deposit. Now, for some of you, gambling might be illegal where you are, so you can't use Underdog. Just like in Indiana, you can't smoke weed, but people choose to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So there's ways to find around it, but if it's legal where you are, use that promo code WOFF for Underdog and get your get your gambling on.
I've never felt the need to say this before, but please gamble responsibly.
Should I say please smoke responsibly?
I was
as
going to say,
well, or-
maybe it's just all the illicit activities we're speaking of tonight.
Yeah, that's my bad on that one. Projected starting offense. This is the Underdog ADP as of 526. If you've not watched either of the other 2 look insides, we use Underdog ADP and we use it best ball, half point PPR, 12-team leagues. Again, this is what is offered and current to us right now because who the hell's drafting in May? Crazy people. That's who's drafting in May. Quarterback room. Russell Wilson, quarterback 30. Jaxson Dart, quarterback 31 in that order on the depth chart, 1 and 2. Tyrone Tracy, running back 1. Cam Scatabo, running back 2. They are 25 and 31, respectively. And remember when Devin Singletary was good for 2.5 weeks? Well, he's the RB 85.
Yeah, we're writing
So
him
that
up.
was short-lived. Wide receiver 1, Malik Neighbors. Wide receiver 6 in total.
Wow.
And then a steep drop-off to a guy who's shorter and smaller than me, Wan'dale Robinson, wide receiver 76. Wide receiver 3, Darius Slayton, dog, 85. T.O. Johnson, tight end 33, and Daniel Bellinger, not drafted. Remember when Daniel Bellinger had some hype like 2 years ago?
They thought he was the heir apparent to Darren Waller there for a minute.
Yep.
Was not to be.
Darren Waller was 'twas not to be.
That's true
So,
too.
Yeah.
That was a fast sinking ship.
His Giants career lasts as long as his rap career, about 3 minutes. So longer than most men can say when you think
There
about
you
it.
go. So
A quick
that's an
thoughts and
eternity.
yeah, it's some may say too long. Expectations for this offense, Ryan. Is there any? Can we have an expectation?
I mean, me and Josh talked about this. It seems very likely the Giants could be one of the worst teams in the entire division, but they still have to be better than last year, right? Like this quarterback room is an improvement over Daniel Jones. And so like, it's hard to be excited for anyone not named Malik Neighbors, but my goodness, am I excited for Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, Malik Neighbors led the NFL last year in targets per game at 11.3.
Yeah.
Like that's
So-
stupid high considering the other great wide receivers that are in the NFL. But
Well,
yeah, I find it interesting. If I told you that the Giants were tied for 8th in the NFL in passing attempts last year,
it's wild.
That
how
checks
many
out.
passing yards do you think they like? Where do you think they would rank in passing yards?
Okay, so I'm going to give the logical answer. Tied for 8th should put them at 45 to 4,600 passing yards.
But I'm
They
going to
were
give
20
the funny answer. I didn't hear what you started with, but they were tied for 8th in pass attempts.
Mhm.
I would say passing yards as a team. Does this include like sacks and like yardage taken out?
Yeah.
Like passing.
Yeah,
It
that
does.
will
It will affect this.
Not in the NFL. No.
Yes, it does. No, it does. But some stats are like passing yards. Some are like
yeah, it's like
passing
cumulative
offense.
passing yards,
Yes,
which takes
okay.
away yards lost. For
Okay,
sacks,
there you
yeah.
go.
This is not a joke. 2,800.
They had more than that, but they were 28th in passing yards last year.
Wow.
Okay.
8th in
When
attempts.
they were tied for 8th in the
28
NFL
yards.
with 591 pass attempts. Like that is an absolutely wild statistic. I mean, Wan'dale Robinson had the most targets among all wide receiver 2s in the NFL last year.
Yeah.
Wan'dale Robinson. Can you believe that?
Dog. Now before I dive into, because I know you did not list the Lord and Savior Jameis Winston on your depth
I did
chart.
not. No.
Now, let's just run this hypothetical. We obviously all love Malik Neighbors. He's wide receiver 6. If I told you he had 17 games of Jameis Winston, does that or does that not vault him to the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football, Ryan?
The moment that they signed Jameis Winston, I was all on Twitter saying that Malik Neighbors wide receiver 1 to the frickin' moon.
Yeah.
Like that was the most short-lived 3 weeks ever until they signed Russell Wilson. And then
I can't get him ahead of Jamar Chase just because Jamar Chase is that with a better Jameis Winston, but he would be my wide receiver 2 if I knew Jameis Winston was starting every game.
Obviously, a strong hypothetical that's not going to happen, but it would be pretty cool if it did.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think Malik Neighbors is pretty well ranked at wide receiver 6. I think that's right around where I have him.
One of the things that Josh actually kind of opened my eyes to was Malik Neighbors' yards per catch was abysmal last year. I think it was 11 even. And this is a guy who fits that, mold of the LSU wide receiver. And so you have, I think Jamar Chase was at 13.6 and Justin Jefferson was like 14.9, or it might have been the other way around for the two of them. But regardless, the two guys that you want to comp Neighbors to were both over 13 yards per catch. If we see a 2+ yards per catch improvement on Malik Neighbors, and which seems plausible with the quarterbacks that are going to be there, this kid's going to be so good this season. I'm
well,
really
let's
looking
not
forward
leave
to
out
it.
Brian Thomas Jr., who was over 14 last year as a rookie.
Yeah.
and finished ahead of Malik Neighbors. Like, I mean, these LSU wide receivers, they're just built different in the 2020s. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like the best thing for Malik Neighbors is this downfield passing attack. But they're just, when you look at the history of Brian Dable offenses, only twice has he been ranked in the top 10 in pass attempts. So, like, this is not a team that's going to throw the ball a ton. Yeah. Like, you draft Jaxson Dart, it's not going to be, I'm going to air it out 600 times a year. Like, that's just not it. Russell Wilson has really never been that quarterback. So, I mean, unless you're starting Jameis Winston for 17 games, this is going to be a pretty conservative offense. So you're banking on target share and a high yards per catch if you're investing in Malik Neighbors in 2025.
Well, we'll talk about Ryan's guy, Wan'dale Robinson, first, since we're on the passing game. Yes, I know, Josh, you have Jaxson Dart, but you brought up Wan'dale Robinson, the most targets amongst wide receiver twos last year. That's insane.
I was going to say, and that's just where I wanted to go with Wan'dale Robinson is Josh brings up a great point that we maybe shouldn't expect the Giants to be, top 10 in the NFL in pass attempts yet again, but there's likely to be as bad a team. And so there's no reason to think they're going to throw any less, at least not game script wise. And so it just brings up the interesting thing that like Wan'dale Robinson in redraft season right now in best ball, wide receiver 76. Once we get to redraft season, wide receiver 76 means free. And this kid was the wide receiver 36 in PPR formats last year. In any league I play in, the wide receiver 36 should be playing most weeks. And so this is a guy who you can grab at the end of your draft, the 14th round, and there's a chance he's playable. But one thing I will tell you, as someone who was heavily invested in Wan'dale Robinson in many leagues, no matter what his ranking is, nobody is trading you for Wan'dale Robinson. You have to be willing to put him into your flex and be happy with those 10 points every week. He's never going to set the world on fire. If you use your flex for boom or bust, Wan'dale Robinson isn't your guy. If you are using your flex for safety net, Wan'dale Robinson's a hell of a safety net. And like I said, nobody will trade you for him. I just want to throw that out there. But I will say a lot of my best ball drafts, and certainly even some of my redraft leagues, I'm not going to mind taking Wan'dale Robinson with my 14th pick.
Yeah, I mean, he's an underneath guy. Like, I mean, he has yards per reception numbers 6.7, 7.8. Like, he does not move off the line of scrimmage. Like, it's so bad, and he's so small, he's not going to break tackles. So the hope is that, with downfield passers like Russell Wilson, who, even in his advanced age does still throw a good deep ball. Obviously, we know what Jameis Winston can do. Maybe that opens things up a little bit more, or can at least lead him into a direction to where when he catches it, he can actually continue to run versus stop and get hit, because he's not breaking any tackles at his size. But like, I'm curious, Ryan, how many targets do you have him at after 140 last year?
I bumped him down to, I think, 111, mainly because I don't have this team throwing as much as you mentioned, and I still have them hyper targeting Malik Neighbors. I have Malik Neighbors at 170 targets. I think this is an offense that's just going to go through him, and it's going to be at Wan'dale Robinson's expense.
Yeah, I have Neighbors at 28.1% target share, and I put Wan'dale at 17.8, and I have them at 559 pass attempts. So it shakes out to 157 for Neighbors and 100 for Wan'dale. So, I mean, they're still the top two targets in this offense, and I don't think that part is changing. But I'm very interested with Theo Johnson, not going to lie. I'm curious to see how he can
I'm not talking another look inside about it.
No. I'm not going too far into it. But again, and a lot of that's just going to boil down to, do they end up throwing at kind of a similar pace to last year? Because if they do, then yes, I do think someone like Theo Johnson can make an impact. But if they do end up coming back down to earth, which is more in line with what Dable typically runs, then yeah, the only pieces of this offense that you want from a passing perspective are Neighbors and Wan'dale, 100%.
Based on their schedule and how bad they are, they're going to be throwing the football a lot. But I'll touch on their defense here in a sec as we go to Jaxson.
Yeah, but I mean, we see with coaches all the time, like, even if they're losing, they're still going to run the football. Like, that's just their offense.
Dable was losing last year and he threw it.
That's what I'm saying. And that's true.
He's not Arthur Smith. He's not Arthur
No.
Smith. He is smart enough to realize, oh, I like whether we suck or not, I do have to stay in this football game or at least try.
No, it's true.
Which is why he still has a job and Arthur Smith is an offensive coordinator. So
Correct.
we will go to Jaxson Dart here, though. They did trade back into the first round for him. That was one of the like biggest projections a lot of people had. It was the Giants trading back in, and it did happen. Jaxson Dart, Josh.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been on record saying that I think if the Giants are smart, they only play Dart in like one game, and that's week 18. Well, then the schedule came out. The first 8 games for the Giants feature 6 teams that made the playoffs the year before.
Wow.
And the other 2 are Dallas, who obviously has gotten better, and a healthy Dak will help with that, and the Saints on the road. There are only 3 home games in those first 8 games: Kansas City, the Chargers, and Philadelphia. There is a world where the Giants start 0-8. More than likely, I think they end up as 1-7 is probably the...
There's a world they go winless, actually.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, they start this season winless, 0-8, right? If that's the case,
Joe meant the whole season.
No, I meant 0-17.
Their defense to me is too good. That front
Wait,
seven.
hold on, I'm
going to
get there. I'm the defense guy. Shut up. I'm going to get there.
But I'm just saying, I think their defense is good enough to keep them in games. But there's a strong possibility this team is 1-7 after 8 games. If this team is 1-7, do you honestly think they're going to stick with Russell Wilson?
Can't do
it. If they're 0-4, they're not going to stick with Russell Wilson.
Also true. So I think that we might be looking at Jaxson Dart the same way that the Patriots handled Drake May last year. I think that they bring him in a little earlier. They're going to give him an opportunity. The difference is Drake May didn't have a Malik Neighbors last year, and Jaxson Dart does.
Kayshawn Boutte, LSU legend.
Stop.
Okay?
Just stop. That, and combine that with Dart's ability to run the football, a la Drake May, he can make some waves as a fantasy quarterback. 3 straight seasons in college, over 550 rushing yards. 2 of those 3 years, 100 or more carries. He's not going to be afraid to run the ball. And honestly, their offensive line is better pass blocking than run blocking, which is crazy to me because Dable offenses love to run the football.
Yeah.
But hey, you get a healthy Andrew Thomas back. Now you got Jaxson Dart with a blindside protector, Malik Neighbors down there somewhere. I mean,
fuck it, Malik.
He's going to outplay quarterback 31 is kind of what I'm getting at. So, you have some streaming upside potential in the back half of that season.
I'm interested. And yes, I do. I think they go 0-17. No, but they're the team that is most likely to. I think the thing that stops them from that is, Josh, you brought it up. Their defense is actually pretty good. Now their secondary is bad. We're gonna stop the buck at the secondary. They have Paulson Adebo, who's okay. Javon Holland is a very good free safety they got from Miami. Deonte Banks had a solid season.
Yeah, a solid rookie season. He kind of
solid rookie season, took a step back. Cordell Flott actually wasn't horrible, but he's not good. So but
what makes a bad secondary look really good?
Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. Those 3 guys specifically.
Yep.
And then when you factor in that Kayvon Thibodeau isn't going to get blocked because the offensive line is to worry about them, then Kayvon Thibodeau. And then when you factor in that I'm gonna put this out there on such a strong limb that 99% of people listening have never heard of Rakeem Nunez Roches or Roy Robertson Harris. And I know Josh wouldn't.
I actually have heard of Roy. I haven't heard of the other guy, though.
Rakeem Nunez Roches? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I've not.
They got him from Tampa. They're both, Roy Robertson Harris is 31. Roches is older as well. They're both very good run stuffing defensive tackles. So their run stuffing ability with Lawrence, Nunez Roches, and Robertson Harris, pretty good. And then follow that up with Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden in the middle, who are 2 very good and capable linebackers. You have Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles as a backup as well. Their front 7 is set up arguably with the most talent in the NFL, and I do not mean that by any stretch of the imagination. Brian Burns is an all-pro. Dexter Lawrence is an all-pro. Abdul Carter is set to be one of the better defensive ends and edge rushers we have seen in recent history. And you have two very good run stuffers in Nunez Roches and Roy Robertson Harris. They're not going to make noise in the stat sheet, but they are very good run stuffers. Their front seven's really good. Straight up, it's very good. So it is going to give teams some fits, and that is going to keep them in games because it's one way or another. Now, I don't think anybody in their division, because Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels can avoid the pass rush. Dak Prescott, maybe not as much with his, obviously, injury history, but there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to struggle to block this defensive line, and that defensive line is going to give teams fits, whether they get to the quarterback or just force incompletions.
Well, let's not forget, too, the Giants' defense was the top 5 defense the first half of last season.
Yeah, they started the season so good.
They started the season really hot, and then the offense just couldn't keep up and just put that much more pressure on the defense, and that's what kind of,
we cover this on our IDB show. I have Brian Burns as defensive lineman 2 as my IDP, and I'm only ranking him 2 because Max Crosby is now playing under Pete Carroll, which means he's literally the reincarnation of the Legion of Boom as a defensive end. So that's just, you're not going to compete with that. But you're going to have to pick and choose your battles, and Brian Burns is not the battle the offensive line is going to pick and choose, in my opinion. So this is really shaping up to be one of the, this is a strong statement, but the Ozi Umenyiora and Michael Strahan, there's arguably more talent on this defensive line than they had back then, because it was those two guys. There's more talent on this defensive line.
Well, and Jason Pierre-Paul too, and that's when they ran those NASCAR
JPP
packages.
And again, this is on paper. In theory, we've never seen them play as a team, but on paper, this team is better, in terms of talent than that defensive line. In theory, I cannot stress in theory enough here because that defensive line was insane. They literally carried them to a Super Bowl win. But that's essentially the level of carrying this defense could do for the Giants. It's not going to carry them to a Super Bowl, but it could carry them to maybe 4 or 5 wins, because they will at some point play a bad team with a bad quarterback, and they will take advantage of that. And if Jaxson Dart does turn out to be a decent quarterback, well, then that's going to set you up in a position to win here. In going to that training camp battle, you're going to have battles in the backfield at both the quarterback and the running back positions. At quarterback, you're looking between Russ, Jameis, and Jaxson Dart. I think most of us think Russ is going to be the week 1 starter. Dart will end up supplanting him at some point. Do we think Jameis Winston stays on as the quarterback 3, as the emergency guy? I think he does.
I wouldn't be shocked if a camp injury or something causes Jameis to get traded, because I know that like them signing Winston was more a product of they were waiting on Russ to kind of make up their mind and they wanted something, right?
They didn't want to lose Winston.
But, correct. Yeah. And then it becomes, well, are we going to get the rookie that we like? Well, they ended up getting that rookie that they like. So maybe there's a chance that Dart starts the season as that emergency third quarterback.
Yeah.
So you end up keeping Winston on for the first, month and a half of the season.
And if they
end up benching Russ, it's going to be one of those situations where they end up probably playing Dart instead of Winston, and Winston just stays as the backup.
I also think they like Tommy DeVito enough that if there's an offer out there for Winston, they're fine with putting DeVito on the practice squad as the emergency third guy. So
that could be it too.
Don't worry, Tim Boyle's going to get cut. So if DeVito doesn't work out, they bring Tim Boyle back.
Yeah, that's true too.
I'm not going to bring it up. I brought it up in the show before. We don't have enough time. Go look at Tim Boyle's college stats and just be amazed that this man is on an NFL roster, because the fact he couldn't even do anything at UConn blows my mind that he's on an NFL roster. But the other backfield battle is Tyrone Tracy, which is the article written online, and Cameron Scatabo. I want to call him Scatta Honey Boo Boo, but there we are. They are not too far apart in ADP. Tracy's 25, Scattaboo is 31, and going to be guys in between. Goes Tracy, Caleb Johnson, Aaron Jones. That rounds out the 7th round. Moving to the 8th round, Tony Pollard, Jalen Warren. Drop into the 9th. You have Ramondre Stevenson, Cameron Scatabo, Then it goes ETN and Zach Charbonnet to round out the 9th round. So I don't know your guys' thoughts. I think it's Tyrone Tracy's backfield until he proves it's not Tyrone Tracy's backfield, but I don't really know.
Yeah, I was the Tyrone Tracy guy last year. This was the episode last year, Joe, where you said who?
I did. I remember that. I said who?
Yep. I'm now concerned because they spent no draft capital on Tyrone Tracy, and now you have a back that you spent some draft capital on. But I'm more concerned, Joe, when you list off that ADP. I like almost all of the players in between better. Certainly Aaron Jones. I've been bringing this up episode for episode now. Aaron Jones is terribly underdrafted if this is who he's getting drafted around, because we can't go into this thinking that there are no questions around Tyrone Tracy. My hope has been all along that we're going to see him utilized in the passing game. He is a converted wide receiver, and it took them half the season to realize they could use him that way last year. But the problem is Scatabo is a pretty damn good receiver out of the backfield too. And so this backfield feels like far more of a mess than even some of the other ones. Like you look at that Pittsburgh backfield, I think both of those guys fell in between here, Caleb and Jalen Warren.
Yep.
You kind of know what their roles are going to be in that offense. In this offense,
you have two very similar backs.
Yeah, I don't. And then the fact of the matter is this: people smarter than me really liked Cam Scatabo. And I can't discount the fact that they're going to get next to each other in training camp, and one's going to look like a 3rd or a 4th round pick, and the other's going to look like a 6th round pick. And Scatabo takes this thing over.
And when you talk about the Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren 5'8", like 205, like a bowling ball. Caleb Johnson's a bigger guy. These guys are both listed at 5'11", 215.
Yeah.
They're the same back. Yeah.
They're the same back.
It was really interesting when when Scatabo got drafted, because you were kind of hoping that, it would be more of like a 1-2 situation, but this is like a 1A, 1B. Like it's basically going to be, they're going to run the exact same system. It's kind of like what we talked about last year with Tennessee, where they bring in Tony Pollard, they have Tajay Spears, and it's like both those guys can do the exact same thing. Well, Look what happened. Tony Pollard took that job, and then when Tony Pollard got hurt, Tajay Spears came in, did the same thing, right? We may be looking at a similar situation here, and Dable just ends up running the hot hand. So you could end up starting Tyrone Tracy 1 week. He fumbles the football, which he did quite a bit last year. Let's not forget that. And then Scatabo runs away with it. You start Scatabo the next week. He fumbles the football, which, by the way, he had 11 of those in 3 years in college. Yeah. Tyrone Tracy ends up scoring all the points. This is why I love this for best ball, right? I'll take any of these guys and be fine. For redraft, this is going to be a pain in the ass. But this is the one note that I have on this backfield. It's all going to come down to who can pass block. Because when you look at Scatabo last year in college, Joe, you'll love this. Their PFF grades.
Oh, God.
Cam Scatabo, 34.0 pass block grade last year.
Is that good?
Tyrone Tracy, 35.1. You want 99s. That's your highest. Yeah. These guys are terrible. Devin Singletary last year, 71.9.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and Devin Singletary is the coach's, and he's the coach's guy. There's no reason for them to
That's the key factor. The other thing is Dable loves running backs that can break tackles. Cam Scatabo was 7th in college football last year in missed tackles first.
Bowling ball.
Yeah.
Now, just to bring up,
Devin Singletary was once one of the top tackle breakers in college football.
Yeah, let's cut that.
Tyrone Tracy, not so much.
Let's cut that shit. So yeah, there's plenty of guys around them, but even if you're looking deeper, just in redraft, like, I'm sorry, why is DeAndre Swift an 11th round pick?
Yeah, that's wild.
Why? Like, whether you like him or not, who is his competition?
Yeah. Whether you like him or not, he is Jahmyr Gibbs light in this offense, and you want a piece of that.
Yeah. So for those of you not drafting DeAndre Swift, keep doing it, because I'll happily take DeAndre Swift as my 4th or 5th running back, like I did Joe Mixon last year.
I need that to at least
heavily
make it to Scott Fishbowl drafts in July. I need that ADP terribly.
Let me tell you, my 14-team league where I had Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and Joe Mixon, I was riding the backs of those gentlemen for weeks because I took Christian McCaffrey at the 101. So, like, please keep doubting DeAndre Swift. I will happily take that man in the 11th round if you keep doubting him. Top 3 favorite best bets. Josh, you have the Giants to score 1+ passing touchdown in every regular season game. That's plus 1,600 on DraftKings. That's one I actually don't hate because it feels hard to not throw a passing touchdown every game in today's NFL.
So over the last 2 seasons, 26 games, Russell Wilson has only missed the touchdown in 2 games. And those came last year in Pittsburgh, which, again, they like to run the football a ton. He has Malik Neighbors to throw to.
Yep.
So, I mean, if we actually do get a 14, 15 games out of Russell Wilson this year, I think this bet can hit.
And speaking of Malik Neighbors, Ryan, you have him over 7.5 receiving touchdowns. That feels free.
I'm going to probably put a significant amount of money on this. 7 touchdowns in 15 games with worse quarterback play last year.
Odds on BetMGM, that's crazy.
Even money on BetMGM on Malik Neighbors to score 1 more touchdown. 8 total touchdowns. Well, 8 receiving, let me be clear. With better quarterbacks. Like I said,
that's the kind of bet that you build a good parlay around. Like, give me the even
find
money,
some parlays, but I'll
also
also double up my money. Like I don't mind throwing $100-$200 on that and just doubling my money at the end of the year. So
yeah, it feels free. In mine, again, I don't look at the odds. I don't give anything like that. But whatever Brian Burns' sack total is, over.
Well, I might be able to find you that one.
Slam it.
We're not going to do that at the end of the show. But yeah,
I'm gonna tell you, they're probably gonna put Burns' sack total at
it'll be 9.5 or 10.5. Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
9.5.
Right now, the only sack total on DraftKings is Myles Garrett. So.
That checks out. What is Myles Garrett's sack total? If I'm
14.5.
15.2.
They are going to put Brian Burns at 9.5, if not lower. He is easily, this is not a lie, a 16 sack guy this year.
Ooh,
easy. He is 1 sack a game, not even a question. Obviously, this is all if he stays healthy, and that's what we do projections on.
Yeah,
he's a 1 sack a game guy. Go look at that defensive line. He is the odd man out, technically.
Yeah.
He's not getting the tight end chip. He's not getting the running back help. He is going one-on-one with their shittier tackle. Yeah, thank you.
I will take Johnson.
I don't care. I literally don't care. Brian Burns is going to blow up anybody he sees.
Stop.
All I know is that
he ain't getting by Lane Johnson. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I doubt that. So, hey, you know what? Fine. He doesn't get by Lane Johnson for 2 games. Great. He needs to get 1.5 sacks in 2 other games. Oh, no. Not Brian. No, Brian Burns will be on every IDP team I have that is sack heavy. No doubt in my mind. I'm going to go Max Crosby and Brian Burns and run that fucking league into the ground. It's going to be the greatest IDP roster you've ever seen in your life. A look inside article. Tyrone Tracy. That is written by our good buddy Austin. That is online, clubfantasyffl.com. And that is the end of our 3rd A Look Inside episode. This one on the New York Giants. 3 teams that went 3-14 last year. Really excited to talk about my team.
We'll get to some better teams soon, I promise.
Yeah, like my team next, the 4-13 New England Patriots.
Boom.
Well, you know what? Let's not forget, last year, the second worst team was the Commanders. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. So
there we go.
So the Cleveland Browns are AFC Championship bound.
AFC Championship.
That logic. That's what I'm.
Let's do it.
Shadur Sanders MVP. I was like, that's what.
Yeah, how's that offensive rookie of the year bet looking now?
Rookie of the year MVP, comeback player. Like
he's got it on lock.
He's got it on lock, guys. For Josh, Ryan, myself, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL, clubfantasyffl.com. Next, A Look Inside episode is the New England Patriots, and we will see you next week.